Etsy sellers. Today I'd like to talk about something completely different, and it's a subject that is really big, but I don't see anyone talking about it on YouTube, and that is the loneliness of being an Etsy seller. And the idea from this video came from my Academy community, where Etsy sellers learn in a private environment to build and grow successful Etsy stores. And there was a comment in the Academy about how isolating and lonely selling on Etsy can be. And I remember in 2021, Etsy did a census. I think it was about 6,400 US sellers that they contacted to get this information. And I went back and found it, and it's very pertinent and relevant to this video. Coming up on your screen now is this data, the most important parts of this data. And the first part of this is 1 in 4 Etsy sellers lives in a rural location. So they're not in towns and cities, they're on the outskirts, or indeed out in the countryside. So rural locations, 25% of all Etsy sellers live in this area. The second thing, and this is incredible, and this needs to be reminded to everyone, 84% of all Etsy sellers are a business of one. That's incredible. The bulk of all Etsy sellers are basically a business of one. Now, it doesn't mean they don't know people, it doesn't mean they don't have friends and family, but just that on its own, just imagining a business of one, it inevitably leads to isolation in some shape or form. We're going to get to this in a minute about how isolation occurs, and perhaps parts of this isolating aspect of selling on Etsy you haven't realized. So yeah, the next thing is average age of seller, 44. So 44 is the average age, and as we get older, it gets harder to meet and socialize and not be lonely. So the average age is 44, and you know, it's not a young selling environment. And the last one, and I've talked about this statistic a lot, and the number I'm going to give you here is from 2021. It's a little bit higher than that now, and that is 79% of all sellers are women. It's a highly female-dominated environment. So with all those statistics being said, let's now move into what all this means. So first of all, it's estimated 1 in 6 people are lonely in general. Just in general, 1 in 6 people are lonely, which in itself is incredible before we even think about Etsy. And the problem that Etsy sellers have, these 84% that are, that say they're a business of one, is that they wear all the hats. They list items, they research, they do the photography, the video, they work out pricing, they sit doing SEO, right? They just wear all the hats. And inevitably, the more hats you wear on your own, the more isolated you're going to be, because you're not talking to anyone else. You're not sharing any experiences. You're saying to yourself, well, I've got to wear all the hats. I've got to do all these jobs myself because of the fear of financial insecurity, which affects so many Etsy sellers. Most Etsy sellers don't make 6 figures over $100,000. They don't. I think the average is about 29,000 or something like that. I don't know the exact figure, but it's not over 100,000, nowhere near it. So there's this constant fear in the background of, I've got to do more. I could be doing this, I could be doing that, to try and make more money and make yourself more financially secure and financially stable. I get it. But as you wear the hats, you become more isolated. Now, this then moves into the part that's really, really damaging here. And that is personal boundary erosion and time pressures. So I'm sure you've all had it you're messing around with listings, you're doing photography, you're doing SEO, you're listing stuff, you're taking stuff out, you're researching, and then you sort of look at the watch, you look at the clock, and you say, wow, 3 hours has gone, 4 hours has gone. And if you were working for a company and you weren't working for yourself, there's no way, right? There's no way that you would be working those hours. And of course, you will come back to me now and say, no, but it's my own business. And because it's my own business, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. But that's the problem. The more you do whatever it takes, the more personal boundaries get eroded under the premise, I've got to do what it takes, even if it's at personal expense to my mental well-being, mental and physical well-being. And time pressures, this is the other part of it. There's always something else to do. There's always another task that must be completed to further your business. It's never ending. You can load on endless pressures of time, wake up tomorrow, and you've just got to do it all over again. And there's no end. There's no end. It just goes on and on and on. And so you start to erode your personal boundaries under the conquest of getting a successful Etsy business. And you heap the pressures of time onto yourself, which then raises the stress levels. And this is why people get to the point where they question to themselves, what am I doing here? What am I doing? I want, a common dream of Etsy sellers is to escape the 9-to-5. This is one of the biggest reasons for joining Etsy, to leave a job or occupation you're not happy with, explore creativity and running a business for yourself. It can be an incredible experience, but due to the way that Etsy works and due to the demands placed on you, it can be so lonely and isolating as well. And I'm wondering, one of these questions that I want to ask you all is, do you feel as if your boundaries, your personal boundaries have been eroded? Do you feel these isolating time pressures? So you keep having to do things, but the things you have to do are more often than not on your own. It's not like you share out the job of answering messages and emails and whatever else it is you're doing, the listing, the research. You're more often than not doing it on your own. So this is something nobody talks about, and I wanted to broach this video and get this out there and get the conversation going. Because I talk to clients all the time, and this is, everything I tell you is 100% the truth. At some capacity or other, I speak to either through audits or emails or consultation calls or mentoring, coaching, 300 people a month, something like that, in one way or another. And the amount of times I'm speaking to someone and they talk about isolation and just doing everything on their own. And also, when they're talking to me, I just feel the need for them to talk to someone. And I know I'm a consultant and a coach, but I feel them talking to me like they're really pleased to be talking to me as a human being, not just as someone they're paying money to help further their Etsy business, right? We just talk as human beings a lot, and I really feel they need that. And then that brings me on to the next part that I realized when I'm doing my consultancy coaching work or in the academy that I run, that there is a bonding experience. That it is less isolating. Of course it's less isolating. And I feel that's a benefit that comes out from the work that I do. A lot of what I do doesn't actually have anything to do with making more money on Etsy. It's about raising morale, raising spirits, raising confidence. And this whole area, this area of loneliness, I really, really want to hear more from you in my comments. I want you to tell me if your Etsy business is isolating and makes you lonely. And please take the time to talk about this and give me examples, or tell me what this is like for you, what this looks like for you. I know this isn't talked about at all. Nobody talks about this. And, you know, I want to see what people have to say here. So get into my comments and tell me what's up here for you with loneliness and isolation with Etsy. And one of the things that I mentioned at the beginning is this was raised by one of my Etsy Academy members. And I just want to say this, the Etsy Academy that I'm building myself and my partner Steph are building is a wonderful space. It's a real community. It's got none of that sort of passive aggressive stuff in the Etsy forum and so on, or other places. You know, it's a lovely place to work and be part of a community. So if you do feel like you'd like to be part of a community for the community side of it, the loneliness, the isolation side, this is a great place to be. Everyone's communicating every day. I'm in there every day. Steph, my partner's in there every day. And people are saying that we're building an amazing space to, you know, to work in, but also be part of something and share. So if this sounds like something for you, if you'd like to learn in a private environment with myself and my team, the Etsy Academy link to book in is coming up on your screen now. Wonderful space to be. You can further your Etsy business, learn everything I teach my private clients, but in a group learning environment. And if that's for you, I suggest you sign up and join us in there. I look forward to catching you in the comments and catching you in the Academy. Cheers.